Right now, we have a special guest on the phone. We have Alfonso Castillo from Newsday. Alfonso, how are you?
I'm good, Zach. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing fantastic. So tell us about this story that you printed recently about the LIRR.
I thought this one would be pretty popular, and it was. The president of the railroad, Phil Lang, was at an event in Woodbury earlier this week, and giving a presentation to business leaders from Long Island about his LIRR Forward initiative, which is a program to just improve railroad service. Mm-hmm. And I was listening for news in there because I've kind of heard that same presentation a couple times before. Right. And he mentioned this bit about duct tape, and my ears perked up. And what he said was that going forward, the railroad would no longer be patching up tears or rips in train seats with duct tape, which is something that I hear complaints about all the time from railroad commuters. This unsightly tape all over seats. The railroad says they were never meant as permanent fixes. They're just kind of temporary until they can make a more permanent fix. But going forward, they're not even going to use them as temporary fixes because they are going to be using what Eng called a full seat patch. So it's almost a giant piece of duct tape. It covers the whole seat, a little more seamless than, again, just a piece of tape on it.
Right.
I think by and large it's been pretty well received. I don't think it is widely in use just yet. As I understand it, they're still trying to get their hands on this material and get it out to the various facilities. Right. So it might be a while before people start seeing it regularly. But, yeah, the plan is, I think at least on the newer trains, the M7 electrical trains that make up most of the fleet, you should stop seeing these seats just patched together with tape.
Okay, and now, Alfonso, I do want to ask you something. Do you ride the LIRR regularly?
Yes. I'm not a daily commuter, but I'm probably at least once a week, probably more than that. I ride. I live along the Long Beach and Far Rockaway line, right. So I actually get pretty good service where I am. Okay,
now I need to ask you this. How many pieces of duct tape have you seen on seats before? Give me like a rough estimate. I know you don't have an exact number.
It really is pretty commonplace, especially depending on the train. So there are these older trains. They call them the M3s. They're from the 1980s. If you got on one, you would know it. They've got the wood-paneled walls and the red and blue vinyl seats. And those, I think a better question is, could you find the seat that doesn't have tape on it? Because it really is everywhere. It seems, my sense is that might not be changing that much. I think this new material that they're talking about is going to be primarily on the newer trains, the M7. I'm not sure it would work that well on those older trains. So you'll probably still be seeing duct tape there. On the newer trains, less so. It's not every seat, but I bet you walk through a train car, you'll find at least a piece of tape or two.
Okay, now I'm pretty sure they wouldn't. You're probably right. They wouldn't replace the seats on the older trains because they're probably on their way out in the next few years. Probably they're probably going to just replace them with newer trains eventually. So there's really no use in putting the new patches on there.
Yes and no. So that is kind of the thinking that these things are on their last leg, and as recently as last year, the plan was for them to start phasing them out either last year or this year. But one of the things that's been going on is that they've really been dealing with a shortage of trains. Certainly late in the year when they run into these issues with leaves on the tracks, wet leaves. And as silly as it might sound, these wet leaves can cause havoc on trains because they cause trains to skid, and that damages wheels, and that trains got to come out of service for repairs. And this was a huge issue around this time last year, where they had a huge shortage of trains because so many of them were out for repairs. And that comes up other times of the year. So one of the things that the new railroad president has said is that he's going to hold on to those older trains for a little while longer. So even as the new trains come online, and riders should start to see them later this year, the newest model of trains, the first time the LIRR is going to have new train cars in close to 20 years, I think. And but those older ones, those 80s era ones, and there's not a whole lot left, but it sounds like they might be around for a little while longer.
Okay. Well, I think some people enjoy if anyone's an avid LIRR rider, I'm pretty sure they enjoy the older 80s trains because maybe they were held up better. Who knows? Maybe they just like the way it sounds. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing, It could be that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I've heard from locomotive engineers who really like them too. So yeah, they're rough around the edges. They're pretty beat up. They look very 80s. Again, the wood paneled walls and all that. But there are definitely perks. They're a little roomier,
right?
For sure. One of the things that I think is the bane of a lot of riders' existence among the newer trains, and even the newer trains aren't that new anymore. But the armrests on the train seats have a history of ripping pants. They're rubbery, and they get caught in your pocket and they rip them. That was not an issue on the older trains. So yeah, and also the older trains, I think, are the only trains in the system that have rows of just one seat. So if you're antisocial like I am, you want to be sure that nobody sits next to you, you can grab that one seat that's all by itself and be assured of that.
Wow, that's cool. I'm pretty sure that won't be available on the newer trains. That'll come out.
Yeah.
They probably want to squeeze more trains, and probably they'll do what the airlines do, is they'll make the seats even smaller than before.
Yeah, well, I've heard that there may be a little more space on the new trains, but it's really negligible. I think the width of the train car, they might squeeze another, I forget what it is, an inch or so. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that it's going to be that noticeable. But there are going to be other kind of perks in the new trains, chargers on every row, so you could plug in pocket doors, I think, between trains, mm-hmm. And all kinds of upgrades of the windows, the bathrooms. So I know they're going to have these digital signs, like digital billboards inside. So they should look a good deal more modern than what LIRR commuters are used to.
All right, now back to the duct tape situation, and I want to know, I know Philip Bang is a relatively new president. I think he's been president for maybe about a year now, I would say, right? Would you give or take?
He came in April. Yeah, he came in April, so I think it's about 9 months now.
So, all right, 9 months. So why haven't they done this new concept earlier? Do you have any idea as to why?
Of the tape?
Yeah, the tape.
Well, I think that the thought was, again, the tape was never meant as the permanent repair. It was meant as a quick fix to essentially sort of stop the bleeding on some of these ripped seats. Mm-hmm. And then when you get an opportunity and you get them into a yard, they make more permanent repairs that, as I understand it, it's sort of like reupholstering them. It's a whole seat cover, so that they fix them the right way. So I don't know that, it was just ever all that high a priority, but the new railroad president has talked a lot about the rider experience, mm-hmm. and I think this is a testament to that. Some people I talked to over the last week, they acknowledge that this isn't the highest priority, and I did another story a couple weeks ago having to do with dirty trains, just trash left on trains.
Right.
And I think similar to that, riders say, again, we understand that in the big picture there are more important things, getting us there on time safely, but, given that very often they're not getting there on time, and the Long Island Railroad had its worst on-time performance in 19 years last year, mm-hmm. and that fare prices could be going up in the next several months, I think riders see this as kind of salt on the wound kind of thing. So on top of everything else, we can't even have a train that's clean or isn't held together by duct tape.
Right.
Sort of insult to injury. And I think the thought is if understanding that some of these other problems are out of your control, this is the kind of thing that you think they'd be able to address. How about we just don't have seats held together by duct tape?
Right.
And the railroads, I guess their feeling is, maybe we can do something about it, and they're doing something about it.
It probably had to have been from a lot of negativity from riders, because you're probably right, Alfonso, that it's not on the top of their priority list, but it is something, that's there, a little icing on the cake, but nothing perfect.
Yeah, one thing you'll hear a lot from regular commuters is that this is a premium service, and they pay premium prices for it. So this isn't a $2.75 train ride on the subway or a bus. Long Island Railroad commuters pay upwards of $400 a month in some cases for their monthly passes. Sorry, and by and large, you're talking about a commuter base that works jobs that pay well, Manhattan jobs that again pay well, and they're paying for this premium service, and they want to feel like they're getting something for their premium service. So when you pay your $400 a month and you step on a train where there's spilled coffee on the ground and beer cans laying around and grime on the seats and on the windows and seats held together by duct tape and bathrooms that are overflowing with sewage. Again, I think it kind of becomes just sort of bad for morale, It's just sort of disheartening for a lot of riders,
Yeah, I can tell. And we mentioned it a little bit before about the cleanliness of the trains, and I want to get to that now because you also mentioned in the article that they're what do you call it? They're trying to improve their maintenance on the trains as well. So they have something called, I read it somewhere, it's called Adopt a Station Corporate Sponsorship Program. What is that exactly?
Right, yeah. So this is a new initiative that the railroad is starting, and they're starting up small. I think the first sponsorship they got is in Ronkonkoma, and it's $10,000 a year. I think it's a parking company, and as I understand it, they're going to be putting in like plantings, maybe sprucing up some of the landscaping, that kind of thing. Uh-huh. They got another company to do the same thing at Jamaica Station, and I think they're going to be putting in they're going to be funding some customer communication, customer information features there. But the railroad's vision for this is really that it could be a new form of revenue, and the thought is that this can be expanded to all kinds of things. Adopt a train, and they can fund cleaning efforts on a particular train, or adopt a stretch of track, similar to what you see on highways. Adopt a highway, the next 2 miles cleaning efforts are funded by so and so company. Phil Lang, the railroad president, comes from the DOT, the state DOT, so I think he's getting some of his inspiration there, and I think they're looking at it as a way of bringing in new revenue. It's kind of found money for them. Mm-hmm. For local businesses, it's an opportunity for them to get their name out and, in front of a huge number of people. The railroad moves 300,000 people every day. So that's a lot of people seeing your company's name and associating your company with some good things, sprucing up your hometown station or your train. So I think they see it as kind of a win-win all around, and are really looking to expand upon it. And I think the thought is that, and I talked to Eng about it earlier this week, some of these companies can potentially fund overtime for getting more cleaners to work more hours to clean a certain train or a certain segment of track. The MTA is really dealing with all kinds of financial problems, and I think there's an edict for them to think outside the box in how they make money, and I think this is Long Island Railroad's one of the ways they're looking to do that.
All righty. Well, Alfonso, I do appreciate you calling up and talking to me and telling everyone about the some of the things that the LIRR are improving. So I do thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no problem, Alfonso, and we do appreciate for you calling in. Thanks again, Alfonso.
Okay, have a good weekend.
All right, you too. All right, we'd like to thank Alfonso Castillo from Newsday to talk about the LIRR story.